Hi, I'm Andy Root-Thompson. I'm a medical illustrator and an instructor of medical illustration at the Columbus College of Art and Design in Columbus, Ohio. This is one of my draw-along anatomy lectures that I use in my class. And while this one is recorded, each lecture is actually done in class with the students drawing along and able to ask questions and interact with me, the material, and each other. For learning, drawing is superior to activities such as reading or writing because it forces the person to process information in multiple ways. And unlike listening to a lecture or viewing an image, activities in which students passively absorb information, drawing is active. It forces students to grapple with what they're learning and reconstruct it in a way that makes sense to them. In the study, The Surprisingly Powerful Influence of Drawing on Memory, the researchers suggest that drawing results in better recall because of how the information is encoded in memory. When a student draws a concept, they must elaborate on its meaning and semantic features, engage in the actual hand movements needed for drawing, which is a motor action, and visually inspect the image they have drawn, which is pictorial processing. Plus, the benefits of drawing are not dependent on the student's level of artistic talent. So, while I teach this at an art college, adding simple drawings to your own lectures will help all of your students, not just the ones who are able to draw well. One more thing before we begin. The drawing software that I'm using for this presentation is a program called Sketchbook by Autodesk. It's a great, simplified alternative to more complex drawing programs such as Adobe Photoshop. It's a free program, and you can download it at sketchbook.com. The recording is being done on Ice Cream Screen Recorder. There's also a free version of Ice Cream available at icecreamapps.com. So with all that being said, let's get on with it. So today's draw along is about anatomical planes. Anatomical planes are imaginary lines that divide the body. We use these planes to help describe the location of structures within the body. But before we get into anatomical planes, we need to review a bit of terminology. So first thing we need to talk about is something called anatomical position. Since humans can move around, we need a set reference point from which to talk about the human body. So we'll just start out by drawing a little character. You can draw a very simple figure. This guy we're going to draw is like one step up from a stick figure. So we're going to put him in anatomical position. Okay. And what that means is that our character is going to be standing straight up. It's going to be facing forward. That he's going to have his arms, or she is going to have her arms at her side, with the palms facing forward. And you can tell the palms are facing forward because the thumb is on the outside. And it's kind of like little upside down hearts just to indicate those. The legs are straight and slightly apart. And the feet are facing towards the front. So let's see. Oh, I forgot their arms at sides. Palms out. Palms forward. Straight legs. And feet forward. So now that our character is in anatomical position, we have a set reference point from which to talk about the body. When we refer to this figure, we need to talk about the left or the right side to make it easier to communicate. And again, since people move, that's going to depend on where the person is. While I'm looking at it, this may be my right side, but if you think about it, this is actually the person's left side. And this is the person's right side. So if you were looking out from the character at yourself, this would be your left hand, this would be your right hand. You always refer to anatomy by the patient's position or the subject's position. So this is going to be patient left, this is going to be patient right. Let's see, let me get rid of these. I'm also going to draw a lateral or a side view. This is a line stabilizer. It just kind of helps shaky hands. So here's the torso. There's one leg, second leg, and we're only going to see one arm, and we're going to have the thumb facing out. So here's our character in the side view. Put a little ear on there. Oh, I forgot the ears on this. We definitely need ears. Alright, so there we got ears. Alright, so some terms that we're going to need. Let's add another layer on here so we can get rid of them easier if we need to. Some terms we're going to need. Pick another color. This program comes with a Copic marker set, which is really, it's very cool. I like the color selection in there. The front side of the figure is called the anterior. And we're going to make a list over here as we go. Right. The back side is the posterior. Let's get another color. All right. Excuse me. Things that are up higher up towards the head are going to be said to be superior. And things that are below are going to be said to be inferior. So your elbow is superior to your wrist. It's above your wrist. Whereas your foot is inferior to your knee. Your foot's below your knee, so it's inferior to your knee. Let's get another color. Oh, our guy's already pink. Let's do something different. All right. And now we're going to put something in here from the front. We're going to see something called the midline. All right. And the midline's obviously just a line that divides your figure left and right through the middle of the body. Things that are close to the midline are known as being medial. Things that are further away from the midline are referred to as lateral. So in this example, let's get another color. Your sternum is medial to your ribs. Okay, what else have we done here? Let's see. We haven't used green yet. Alright, some things are superficial. Superficial things are on the surface of the body. A shallow cut on your skin is referred to as a superficial cut, and deep things are away from the surface of your body. So a cut that goes all the way through the skin into the fatty layer is considered a deep cut. Alright, two more terms. We have, oh, let me write deep here, forgot that. And two more terms, let's pick another color. Proximal and distal, we're going to write these first. Proximal and distal. Distal things are further away from the origination of a structure. So in this example over here, your hand is distal from the shoulder being where the arm originates. So the hand is distal. And it also happens to be inferior to the shoulder. Though, it doesn't really feel inferior to the shoulder, it thinks it's just as worthwhile as the shoulder. Alright, that was bad. Proximal things are closer to the origination of a structure. So your elbow is more proximal to the shoulder than your hand. Your elbow is closer to the origin than your hand. So proximal and distal. So let's put distal here, and we'll put proximal here. Alright, so that's quite a few terms. Now that we have a little bit of vocabulary under our belts, let's look at the actual anatomical planes. So anatomical planes are used to divide the body. So let's get a little bit of this out of here right now. We'll keep the terms, we'll keep our character, we'll get rid of all those. Add another layer here. Say I wanted to show something that was inside of our character. I wanted to show something that was close to the middle of our character. Well, I can make a cut straight across the figure, and that cut would be called a transverse plane. And the transverse plane would divide the figure into superior and inferior halves. Or let's get another color. Maybe I want to divide the figure into left and right sections. So I'm going to make a cut right down the midline. This midline cut is going to be known as a sagittal section, or a sagittal plane. That's two T's, sagittal plane. Or from the side view, suppose we want to divide our figure into anterior and posterior sections. So we could draw a line down the middle of the side from top to bottom, and that's going to be known as a coronal plane. That's going to divide our character into front, anterior, and rear, posterior sections. Alright, let's get that out of there. Let's get the dude out of there. Let's get a new layer. I need just a tiny bit smaller brush for this. There we go, let's see. Not yet. Too small. Could fiddle with this all day. There we go. Let's look at this in a 3D view. So we're going to redraw the character, and I'm sure almost everyone has doodled a 3D box at some time or another. So that's all we're going to do. We're going to draw a 3D box, but we're going to make it into the torso. So we're going to draw the rectangle that we had earlier for the torso. And we're going to put 3 lines coming back off the corners, parallel lines at a slight angle. And we're going to connect the sides to give it some depth. Not too deep, because that's the torso, remember. Let me get rid of some of these hangers. Alright, so there's our 3D box. And we can turn this into the character again. Facing front. Palms out. Alright, so there's our character. And I'm going to duplicate it real quick. So give me just a second because I want to show you something. So I duplicate this again. 3 parallel lines going back and connect them. Here's our character. It's getting looser each time. I'm gonna leave the arms off for just a second. And if I draw a line across this, this is our transverse plane that we drew earlier. All right. So if I draw that transverse plane again, but this time I take it back at those same angle with those parallel lines, and I kind of fill that in, so I have that flat plane. And then if I go and I erase, this is what a transverse plane is going to show you. It's going to show you the inside looking down on it. It looks a little like maybe a cockroach that got the bad end of a butcher's knife. That's kind of gross. But it, you know, he's got to cut it in half like that. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and let me get this line out of here for a second. And I'm going to add another layer. We're going to put that transverse plane that we just drew over there, we're going to move it onto this character. And we will not lob his head off this time. Alright, and that is our transverse. Alright, and I'm going to take that transverse and I'm just going to fade that back. I'm going to add another layer on top of it. And the second one we looked at was the sagittal. So let me get a different color. And if you remember, the sagittal went from the top to the bottom. Thought I got another color. Actually, I have to touch the color. From the top to the bottom. And now we're going to run that one back. So the lines go back at an angle, parallel lines go back at an angle, and then again connect top to bottom. Alright, and I'm going to fill this in. This is our sagittal section. So this divides into a left and a right side. If I were to erase all this, we would just see this face of the block. We'd see this face of this block. Right, and we can darken that in a little bit to show you what that looks like. I don't think that'll hurt anything. Alright, so we're just seeing that face. Let me get those back out of there for now. And I'm going to fade this one back. So we're going to start to see how these planes go together. And we'll add another one, and the third plane that we had was the coronal section. The coronal plane. And again, that is going to cut from the back to the front. So we're going to have a front piece, an anterior piece, and a back piece, a posterior piece. So we're going to cut this in half, again front to back. And we'll color this one in. And if I, darken the sides so you can kind of see that, here would be what we'd be looking at. We'd be looking at that dark green section. Let me get those out of there. And if we fade that back, and now you can kind of see all three of the planes together. And again, this one, the green is the coronal, and the red is the transverse, and the blue, which I'd turned off for a second, the blue is the sagittal. And again, we can turn those down so you can see all those planes and how they kind of work together. We're going to look at these more in just a second on just a cube and see how you can have multiple views in a single image. And I just realized that I hadn't been adding to our vocabulary list, so let's go back and we're going to add, let's try to keep these color coded, see if I can keep that up for a while. We'll see how it goes. Coronal, again dividing into anterior and posterior pieces. And in blue we had the sagittal, dividing into left and right, and in red we have the transverse, dividing us into superior and inferior pieces. I'm going to call these out. We're going to try to remember those colors as we move forward. We're going to do a cube, just a cube next without our little character. So let's get rid of some of these. Hey, there we go. That's that. Put a new layer in. Okay, so I'm going to start a little bit lighter this time, and I'm going to start with just a cube. And same as the rectangle, I'm just going to make it a little deeper. 3 parallel lines going back at an angle. These don't have to be perfect. Alright, these are not art, these are just us playing around and learning with drawing. And earlier we had drawn the a sagittal section. And remember, the sagittal section was giving us a left and a right hand piece. And if I draw a sagittal here, I can draw that's the middle. Of course I can draw a sagittal in the middle, but I can draw a sagittal section anywhere on this piece that I want. Alright. The one that I draw right here in the middle is going to be called a mid-sagittal, obviously. Alright. Ones that are off to the side, so like this one and any other that we want to put in here, are going to be called parasagittal. The parasagittal planes. So right now we're going to take this cube and we're going to draw a parasagittal plane. I'm going to erase some of these. If I can, kind of destroy that a little bit. We'll put it back. Alright. So there's my parasagittal plane. And I'm going to throw another layer on here just because I like to get tricky. And pick another light color. I'm get a little bigger brush here for a second. Is that bigger? Not really. There we go. And I'm going to color in this front plane of the parasagittal piece. There it goes. And then I can fade it back. And I can do some of these fun things because I'm on this computer program. Try to clean it up just a little bit. So this is my parasagittal plane. Sometimes we want to show multiple structures within a single drawing. So say that sitting somewhere within this, well, that's a little too light. Say that sitting somewhere within this cube that we had drawn. Alright, here's this cube. That's this one. There had been another cube floating around on the inside. And we want to cut that cube in half. Let's see which layer I'm on. That one will do. You know what, let's add another just in case. So I've got another cube that's going to be floating inside of this. So we'll draw the front face of it here. Here's the front face of that cube. And then we're going to take it back just like we did previously. Right. And I'm going to cut this cube in half right in the middle. So now I've got a mid-sagittal plane on that cube. Alright, and I'm going to get rid of some of these that I don't need. and flatten this out. All right, you see where I'm at? So now I have a structure within a structure, and I have this outer cube cut on a parasagittal plane right here off to the side, and this inside cube is cut on a mid-sagittal plane. So I can make various cuts depending on what I want to show. This cube we could also pardon me. This cube we could also make a transverse section through it. So if we came back here and we brought these lines out, and let's get another color. Yeah, I get a little uptight, I know. Can't help it, I'm a medical illustrator. It's a curse. Okay, now I have a transverse plane. Where did I even draw that crazy thing? Here we are. I have a transverse plane. Did I lose my colors yet? Well, kind of. The sagittal I made orange. See, I knew I wouldn't be able to remember that. Yeah, this is my transverse plane. And if I want to, I could come back and I could divide this even further. Let's go back to green, because coronal is green, right? And I could make a coronal section on the front of this. And a coronal is going to divide us into anterior and posterior pieces. I'm going to need to go and erase a couple things, I think. And we'll go ahead and color that one in, since it's already light. And so now I can have my my coronal section in the green. So I can combine lots of things together. And let me try to get some of that out of there. Maybe we can clean this up a little. That's the layer I want right there. We get rid of a few lines. I can bring this into focus just a little bit more, I think. And you can see how we were able to section this thing up. So that's some basic anatomical terminology and transverse, coronal, and sagittal planes. The next step in my class that I will do with this is we'll get Play-Doh out, and we will build all little bodies out of Play-Doh, and then we will cut them up and experiment with the planes in that way. So thanks for watching. I hope you participated. I hope you maybe picked up a few things that you could take into your own classroom. And remember that these drawing techniques, they help all students, not just students that can draw. And you know, instructors, you don't have to be an artist to be able to do some of these simple stick figures, circles, squares, cubes, anything you can do to kind of get the idea across to your students in a more visual way, instead of just showing slides. And having the students participate is a super important part of this process. If you have any questions, or if you need to get a hold of me for any reason, you can always email me at Mandy at Meddraw Studio, MEDDRAWSTUDIO, medrawstudio.com. Have a great day.